What's up guys, it's Willie and today I'm here talking about a new indie animation that had recently came out known as Run Monster Run, which I didn't know the existence of this show when it recently came out, though I did stumble upon clips of it circulating on TikTok and such, which I was under the impression that it was from an older show, and boy was my assumption wrong, like I always seem to be. Now, despite my assumption, the clips that I've seen were very inviting to me to look up what this show is, and with some of my spare time taken on the research and exploration of what this show entails and premises, it was fortunate enough to draw me into watching its pilot. Now I've gotta say, prefacing my early thoughts on it, it's astoundingly good, but this show really sets some really strong stake for itself, and it's impressive that the creators have been very active with posting a lot of stuff related to the show, even product placements and such sort. And this is the kind of thing that really fascinates me with indie animation, and these creators take on the cue of that, but are also self-aware, opening up that the inspiration of this show comes from a lot of the successes of the amazing digital circus, which I absolutely see a lot of semi-resemblance that this show correlates with on the grounds of its interests and atmosphere. Like, okay, to really set the stage, the show is centered around three young monsters who inherit on their own sort of specialty of powers and are based in a solitary confinement within a research facility run by the humanity. However, it's unbeknownst to them that they are actually being used as test subjects for these researchers to gain information regarding them, basically as their tact to understand the potential danger the monsters could impose on humanity moving forward. And you know, just from the premise alone, I just already feel like it's very rewarding to me. You know, the whole narrative of these characters being based in solitary is exactly the kind of reminders I get of the amazing digital circus. Though the narrative does shift right at the end, we do grow this loving attachment with the characters where they feel a sense of confinement within the atmosphere that they believe they're trapped in, and have the revolving thought of trying to find a way to freedom. And the kind of stakes like that is what is passing the torch onto this show, where we're getting something identical to that nature, and I like that. Plus, to iterate that they got inspired from that show, it's even more fun to watch how the show is experimenting upon their inspiration. Now, with this being an early thoughts video and we had that pilot release, I'm just going to briefly talk more generally about it from beginning to end and share upon details that I want to talk about, eulogize the three monsters, and just give me off my final thoughts with what we can anticipate with this show moving forward. But before you continue on, please take the time to tap that like on this video and subscribe to my channel, as I am close to reaching to 1,000 subscribers, and I would be greatly appreciative of you for showing me your support on this channel. So please consider that. But anyways, let's get into it. So just going over the pilot, it really is a strong stretch of segments after segments. Like, we begin things off with the three monsters Zappy, Nebula, and Gloom being awakened to basically experiment their powers, which on the flip side, the human race are absorbing all of their observations of their powers to further assess the threat that the three could impose, and things don't go working out well for Zappy and Gloom, which leads to them being held inside a cell as like a consequence for their actions, while for Nebula, he just gets off scot-free because his nerdiness helped him spare him from the wrath of confinement, on top of earning him some ice cream as a reward, which he was nice enough to leave one to share with Zappy and Gloom whenever they were let go. And talking about, they were stuck in the cell with Zappy using the most of her emotions to get herself and Gloom out of the cell, so kudos to her. And then we continue on to the next segment where Nebula would find a way to reboot the CV system, where they're able to watch multiple channels, which they would come across one that would inform them of the dark secrets surrounding the facility and the supposed true motives that the staff had with them. And this causes them to slowly realize the reality, and Zappy in particular just spirals and takes it out on her peers for it. And honestly, this scene was pretty tense. I do think Zappy got a bit over dramatic just because of everything that transpired, but I feel like taking it out on Gloom and Nebula was definitely not ideal, especially with them being equivalent to her categories. But anyways, this whole tussle would cease within one of Gloom's portal dimensions, and it was sort of a nice little contrast apart from the segment that we just had with the three just cooling down and seeking out an escape plan, which they do go through with, but always it's not going to be that smooth of a ride, with Gloom running out of energy and some of them encountering the staff members who were literally going to take them out, but those three monsters beat them right to it. And then as they are surrounded by the staff, they find their escape, which involves them falling into an unknown, where the episode wraps up on a cliffhanger, which there is a lot of strong potential with where things are going. The stakes are just rising and the suspense is building up something huge. I definitely would recommend this to anyone. It's got some good story building, the humor is feeling more organic, and I just love the tension that is rising. And there's a lot of strong kudos to the creators themselves, where within this short period, they generate themselves a massive community following with such a lively atmosphere, and pertaining to their consistent uploads with shorts and other not, kind of like the cues of what Glitch approaches with some of their shorts. So this is a strong boon for what the show has in store. And this is just only the beginning, with this being an 8-episode stretch, so it feels like it becomes a more interesting trajectory on how they're gonna build upon this concept. Are the monsters gonna find some sort of freedom, or will they be embracing the monsters mold that they were always meant to be? Who knows, and we'll only know when the show tells us. So likewise, while we await for the next episode to roll by, we can just go to our garage and grab that hammer to smash on the replay button as we rewatch that incredible pilot over and over again. Now, like always with these, I want to eulogize the main characters to break down my overall thoughts on them, plus also kind of like tackle upon the character arc and trope that they're building off as. And let me just cut to the chase here. I think I found a new favorite of mine. Zappy! I mean, come on, frantic energy. I live for that vibe. Plus, because I guess I have this fond for these android-like creatures from these shows, her character design already sets the appeal to me, as she resembles this dinosaur-like baby-fied Godzilla who possesses this extremely over-the-top personality, which can get a bit over-dramatic at times, but I still found myself really attached to her character, and just so many things within this pilot exceeding my expectations with her energy too. And speaking of, she further adds to the appeal with her electrical power. And as someone as myself who always imagined myself having the power of lightning, it's like that matching socks sort of vibe that I get with Zappy. Plus, it's kind of like a similar case with Jax from the Digital Circus, where I would really want to know her story and why she winded up to who she is now. Hopefully we'll be getting that later on. But just to thread the needle, Zappy is very unique in her own ways that I do love about her spirit, so she's driven the attachment that I have to her character. Gloom is this like one-eyed shadowy creature who falls into the emo category, where he's just extremely smug, though internally it shows a lot of contrast to what he represents with his strong care for his peers. And from my own knowledge, I feel like he comes off as a mix of Zubul and Jax together, just without obviously the mischievous persona within him. But I'll say the Zubul side definitely takes up a strong amount of the margin with his personality, and he's like this fascinating monster who has this sort of portal hopping ability, like what we've seen the elements taken from Portal or even portals in general. And similarly, like Zappy, I do really enjoy him as well. He does have an interesting energy that he brings, and he also gives such witty retorts that are somewhat easily relatable as well. I do look forward to where his role lands in this show. So I do feel that Gloom also feels unique in his own light, and I'm curious to know how his story goes, even on what it is about. Nebular is this alien-like character who builds off the tropes of the smart guy. Like, he obviously has that expertise and has no hesitation to be upfront about it. And I guess his strong tenacity with his intelligence, with technology and stuff. And I'm interested to see how his role evolves as kind of like the brains of the group. Now, in terms of personality, I will admit he is kind of the lesser riveting of the three, but this is only in place of what we only got from the pilot, and we could be in a position where his character will grow and probably have more times to pop than what. And you know what, I guess I would talk about this show's would-be antagonist, Allseer, who is just this computerized entity who interacts with the three, and just alone, he already screams out as that anti-hero mode. And this is what I'm talking about with the resemblance of Digital Circus. He kind of gives a lot of sound to Cain, with how much his desires feel like is his biggest priorities than the values of others. And we saw by the end, Cain finally came to the recognition of his poor management and thus developing his reformation. And I'm not going to really predict how it's going to go with Allseer here, if he's going to have an identical sort of arc, but for me, he just seems just so Cain coded. And I mean, come on, they're both digital based, so there's no doubting that comparison. But it feels that Allseer is a lot more of a smooth talker to try and lure those to favor his desires. And while I mean, he himself is not as like powerful with his control compared to Cain, I think he's set up to be a pretty deadly force upon this series. My big interest cannot refrain me from this. If you hadn't checked out the pilot of this show, finish up watching this and get on with the viewing experience yourself. You don't want to miss out on some potential peak. And if you have already seen it, let me know in the comments below what you guys think. That's that. I'm signing off here. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you all in the next video.